Hi, it's Stacey here from Hunter Region Landcare Network. In this video, you'll learn about Bulga Landcare. They're using new technology and ancient techniques to restore the environment in the Bulga area. You'll discover some exciting new projects that they're working on, as well as some long-term success they've had at McNamara Park.
So what we're doing here is we're doing a rapid data collection for a vegetation mapping project that we've got going. So we've come in here, and what we need to do is be at one particular spot, and we identify the four most dominant trees, the four most dominant shrubs, and the four most dominant ground covers. So I'm actually uploading it into iNaturalist, which is a widely available free app. We've got photographs of what we're identifying, we've got a location point, and then we will export that in a spreadsheet and give it to Stephen Bell, the botanist that's working with us, and he'll use that data to map the vegetation across our region by combining our data with soil data, geological information, and aerial photographic interpretation. By us collecting the data, it makes it a less time-consuming and less expensive process for him to do the veg mapping. So we can use it as a resource so that a landholder can come along and look at their property and go, oh, my property used to be bull oak forest. And they can then identify what species would likely do best in those locations to help with their restoration efforts. It's a really good way to share information. So our Landcare group, we're fortunate, we've got lots of wise elders. The group's been around for 25 years. They don't want to be out there pulling weeds, for the next 10 years. And I see this as a project where we can continue to involve our long-term elderly members, and going out and walking around identifying plants is much easier than going in and pulling out weeds.
The history is that people always felt that there were no river red gums along the brook here. But we're gradually finding isolated trees, and here very recently, only very recently, we discovered this whole group of river red gums, and there are trees regenerating as well, so we're quite excited about that. There's another stand up at Bulga, and we started a project of saying, well, wouldn't it be nice to regenerate trees? The neighbour next door, he was the one who had always said, well, he grew up here, and he always remembers river red gums growing all along the river. And that has been kind of our inspiration to regenerate that environment. They're a beautiful species, they're quite iconic, and if they're rare, that makes it even more special, I guess. We wanted to generally regenerate along the river, and down in this area, it's an ideal environment for river red gums because this becomes a marshland with a couple of streams flowing through. This is the southernmost point where river red gums grow in a coastal environment. So if we're re-establishing, it's very important that we re-establish with true local indigenous species so that we've got a pure population to start with. And you can't just plant isolated trees, you've got to have in groups. We've got a new generation of people who own these relatively small blocks of land, and it's amazing how many of those people are very enthusiastic. Personally, I'm trying to establish a small bush corridor that'll link up into Yengo National Park, because there's no connection along this river between the park and the wildlife and the wilderness and the river. And of course they need water and they need to come down. So it would be lovely to be able to have some links between the national park and the river.
I'd always wanted to have a cool burn. It's just a gentle process that just moves right the way through the undergrowth, and it just clears it all out. This way you're protecting the animals, you're protecting the plants, you're protecting the humans.
The group conducted a cultural burn, and it's really nice to see in the understory we've got a lot of shrubs coming up, particularly this coffee bush, the brania. So these are young Angophora floribunda, which is the dominant canopy tree here, and we had a stand that was just the old trees and no natural regeneration. But then after our cool burn, it's really exciting. We've got all these seedlings coming up in the understory. So a site that wasn't naturally regenerating in the past is now, after the cultural burns, starting to regenerate naturally. So very exciting.
Broke was settled in the 1830s, so the first thing white people would have done would be to clear the area so the cattle could graze here. We've sort of got old black and white photos of McNamara Park where there were hardly any trees. Cattle were taken out of the area, I think, in the 1960s. Since then, it's just slowly regenerated to be what it is now.
All our working bees were in McNamara Park, where we came down, and in the early days we actually had to use chainsaws to cut down African olives.
On the other side of the bank, which hadn't been controlled, I can remember basically you couldn't walk through there for the African olives. So the different sides of the bank, you could see what Landcare had done. And the natural regeneration that has come through from that, actually the absence of the shading out of the African olive and the competition, that's where all these things came from. Basically, yeah, you're seeing like the lily pillies and that are coming up.
What I love about Landcare is I'm meeting other like-minded people. So for me, community building is really important and the environment's really important. So I love that through Landcare, I get to do something that focuses on both those things.
People that you enjoy being with and enjoy being out working in the environment and have a cause that you're focusing on.
The central philosophy of the path that I follow was an outworking in terms of man-making, man-service and land service. Landcare is really fulfilling that in many different directions, and obviously the land service, working and helping the community to improve the environment that we live in.
To get involved in the Broke Bulga Landcare group, go to hunterlandcare.org.au, click on the groups and find their contact details.